First of all, where were you when you read Suella Braverman's letter?
Well, I had the opportunity to read it last night. Look, it's clearly a very personal letter. I don't recognise some of the characterisations written in it from working with the Prime Minister. I know that he is an incredibly hard-working Prime Minister and has delivered on a number of things, not least, and I will do what you asked me not to do, but not least inflation, right, which has come down.
And I'm going to give you a big chunk to talk about inflation because it is a good news day, and I want to share that with our viewers. Christmas come early for some of them. It is good news. But do you think there's any way back now for Suella Braverman into a future cabinet?
Well, look, reshuffles are really difficult, and inevitably there are some people who will be really disappointed. But what Rishi Sunak has done is created a new cabinet with new talent brought in of different parts of the party, drawing on strength of all different parts of the party. And I think
is there any way she could sit around the cabinet table again, do you think, in Rishi Sunak's government?
Well, that's a question for the Prime Minister. It's up to him who sits around his cabinet table. He has just made a decision as to who's sitting around his cabinet table. And as I say, is drawing on the strengths of all the party. And
would you have written that letter?
That is a letter very personal to her. I've never been Home Secretary, so I've never had the opportunity to write any letter to a Prime Minister in such circumstances. But what I will tell you is that I don't recognise some of the characterisations of the Prime Minister in that letter.
I'm going to take from that you would not have written a letter in that tone. However, what you will do is talk to me about the inflation figures, and you're thrilled.
Look, it's good news, clearly, that inflation is coming down. It's coming down quite significantly. But we realise that families are still having a hard time. It's still too high. The Bank of England target is clearly 2%. But yes, we are pleased it's going in the right direction, but we are most certainly not complacent. Inflation rarely goes down in a straight line. So we've got to ensure that we're vigilant to that we continue to support the Bank of England with who have monetary policy to be able to bear down on inflation even further. So
what you're saying there is that be prepared for it to go back up again?
We rarely see inflation going in a straight line down. Yes. So it can go up and it can go down. But what we are clearly seeing now is that inflation is coming down significantly from the peak of 11% to what it is today, 4.6%. And that is a good thing because this affects everybody in the country with their bills. It affects people when they go to do their shopping. And so clearly this is good news. But we've got further to go and we're not complacent about it by any means.
Forgive me, I'm just looking at my phone because we've just heard from the Prime Minister. He says, we must stay the course to continue to get inflation all the way back down to 2%, saying that just a few moments ago. When will it get there?
Well, the Bank of England have estimated that it should be down below 4% next year. We look at forecasts all the time, but what we can do in the Treasury is just make sure that fiscal policy, the policies that we have control of, align with the action of the Bank of England with interest rates. So that means making difficult decisions sometimes, not to exacerbate inflation, not to push it up. So difficult decisions on public sector pay, for example, to increase borrowing. And there's other levers that we've had available to us. So when we had the spike in wholesale energy gas prices, we introduced the energy price guarantee, for example.
Go down to 2%?
Well, we'll see what happens next year, but all we can do is ensure that we take the action that we have control over to get it down.
Should it be down there by the end of next year?
Again, we don't know, but what we can do is take action to try and get it there. And we obviously very much hope that we can get it down to the target.
OK, I mean, it's been a good start to the day, certainly, for the Prime Minister. The Supreme Court might put paid to all of that, though.
Well, we'll see what happens at, I think it's 10 o'clock with the decision.
Live on Sky News, quick plug.
There you go. And, it would be wrong of me to speculate, but we've been very clear, the Prime Minister's been very clear that the priority is getting Rwanda, through and getting that as our top priority when it comes to tackling the boats. We've already made significant progress when it comes to tackling the boats, by the way. We've done...
You've not sent anybody to Rwanda, though, and it's cost us a fortune.
Well, that is absolutely the priority, is to make Rwanda, one of the tools that we have available to us, and we'll see what the decision...
But if the Supreme Court says it's not safe to send people there while their applications are being considered, what are you going to do?
Well, I think the Prime Minister's been clear we'll do whatever it takes to stop the boats, but
Yeah,
the
but what will you do
priority
about
is Rwanda.
What will you do about Rwanda if the Supreme Court says, no, you cannot send them there, it's not safe? You're not going to send people to a place where the Supreme Court says it's not safe, are you? So what are you going to do instead?
Well, we are confident that we can maintain the policy on Rwanda while maintaining our obligations, our international treaty obligations. But that will have to be, we'll have to see what the decision is at 10 a.m.
How will you do that?
Well, obviously, it's dependent upon the decision at 10 a.m., but the Prime Minister has been clear we'll do whatever it takes and we'll look at all options.
If the court says no, what are you going to do?
Well, we'll look at different options available to us.
About the European Convention on Human Rights?
We will look at all options available to us. The Prime Minister has been clear that we'll do whatever it takes to stop the boats. They are already coming down, and we'll keep going.
I mean, you must. You're not going to. It's not a flip of the dice today. You must not flip of a coin, rather, roll of the dice. Mixing up my metaphors. You must have something in place for if the chief Supreme Court judge today says no, you can't send people.
We've always been clear that Rwanda is one tool available to us, one programme. It is the priority. We are confident that we can pursue that while maintaining our international treaty obligations, but we'll have to see what the decision is, and then it's up to the Prime Minister to decide, based on different options available to him, what we might do.
The British public deserve to know. I mean, you spent all this money.
Yeah,
£120 million more?
Well, I'm not going to speculate. It's not long to wait for the decision, but it is up to the Prime Minister to decide from that.
But just to clarify then, there is a plan B if it doesn't go ahead?
Well, Rwanda is the priority, but it is one of a number of options.
So there is a plan B?
The Prime Minister has already signed, for example, agreement with Albania, which has brought down...
I know that. We're talking about this live situation. Is there a plan B if the judges say no?
Well, as I said, Rwanda is one part, but he has also said we will do whatever it takes to stop the boats.
Yeah, but is there a plan B?
Well, Rwanda is one option available to us,
there is a plan
which
B.
is a priority.
Why won't you tell us? I don't get it.
Well, I think I'm making clear that he will look at other options if Rwanda is not an option, and you have to ask the Prime Minister
sincerely hoping that he's already looked
at
other options, surely.
Well, there are other actions that we're taking, not least the agreement with Albania, the agreement and partnership that we've got with France that's brought down crossings. So Rwanda is one part of the puzzle, and we're pursuing other options as well as Rwanda.
We all need a plan B.
Well, you're calling it a plan B. What I'm saying is there are lots of different ways in which we can tackle the boats. Rwanda has been our priority. We've done other things. But we are, I'm not going to speculate on the decision that's coming out.
You should see the list of my plan Bs on a Friday. Talk to me about how we feel about what's going on as we speak. The Israeli Defence Force still telling us that an operation is underway at a major hospital, the biggest hospital in Gaza. Boots on the ground, that phrase. I mean, quite literally. The British government supports that?
We support the Israeli government in tackling Hamas, which committed one of the worst terrorist attacks that the world has ever seen. And if Britain was attacked by a terrorist organisation and killed the number of people that they killed, the British public would rightly expect us to go after those terrorists, and that's what Israel is doing. But we've always been very clear with the Israeli government that they must do so in accordance with international humanitarian law, and that's what we'll continue to press for.
And do you think this is within, troops storming a hospital?
Well, it's not within my bounds of qualification.
No, but you are representing the government today.
Yeah, I am, but appreciate that it is not appropriate to talk about day-to-day, on-the-ground operations on specific locations, but the overall approach of the British government is to support Israel in tackling Hamas, but also be mindful and be very clear to the Israeli government that they must do so in accordance with humanitarian.
Sure. I mean, we heard the conversation being transmitted between the guy who's in charge of the IDF and the chap who's in charge of the hospital. I mean, I think it's fair to say they didn't knock on the door, so they certainly stormed into the building, but the IDF is saying they were taking incubators and other humanitarian aid. That is something that the British government would support.
We support Israel in tackling Hamas. We know that Hamas have used civilians as human shields. That is completely unacceptable. That is against international humanitarian law. But we continue to have strong engagement with the Israeli government as their operations continue.
To accept that the Israeli government is, is questionable, given that more than 11,000 Palestinians have died. How many have to die?
We want Israel to win the war against Hamas. Hamas is clearly one of the most despicable organisations the world has ever seen, and we have to support Israel in their pursuit of Hamas. And that's what we will continue to do.
OK, I need to let you go. It's been a pleasure seeing you this morning. Was there one particular bit of her email, Suella's, that made you go...
Well, like I said, I don't recognise the characterisations that she's outlined. I know the Prime Minister is one of the hardest working people I've ever met, and he's continued to act for the British people, not least with the inflation figures out today.